Ladies and gents, welcome back. My name is Ace and I've got some more Guild Wars 2 content. And this video will be about my Guardian build, my Norn Guardian build. And this will be a little bit in a in-depth guide towards my build. So if you really want to know why my build is why it is, then I would recommend to listen to it. Otherwise, I would just go and be 00, 30, 30, 10. Now, before I go and explain everything about this build, you need to know a few things. This build is basically built by myself without any theory crafting. And it's based around my personal preference, which usually is the weapons. My goal as a guardian, or at least my goal as a player within this game. The things that I do, more importantly, which is PvE and Worldview World. And the people that I'm playing with on a regular basis. So depending on these factors, your build can actually change even if you are copying it. And this is perfectly fine, because there's a lot of things you can change out, and suddenly you become more powerful but less tanky, or you become more healable but you will do less damage, or you become completely indestructible but that's all you can do. Now it kind of depends on what you're looking for and what weapons you are using and such. But nonetheless, I think it's a good time to get going into the traits itself. Now normally, I would say spec into the damage if you want to do the most damage. And you're probably right. If you want to do the most damage, spec into the damage. But this game is called Range Wars 2 by certain people, especially by me. This game is very biased against people that are not ranged. And if you want to use a greatsword such as me or any other melee weapon to do damage or be in combat, you really want to be tanky, otherwise you'll get one-shot by explorable bosses or just in Worldview World you're not going to have a good time. So actually not speccing into the DPS spec completely allows you to have more damage time, allows you to fight longer, actually in the long run allows you to do more damage, which is something a lot of people don't understand. So I spec into toughness or valor, vitality for honor, which also allows me to heal more, toughness actually allows me to do more critical damage, and virtues, which allows you to have a longer boon duration, as well as virtue recharge rate increased by 10%, which actually doesn't really mean much to me. It's because of the other two why these 10 points are important, but let's just start at the beginning. So why do you want to have a lot of toughness? Toughness is the main thing for this build. You want to have a lot of toughness. Because of this, retributive armor. 5% of toughness is given to a bonus to precision. So the more tougher you become, the more powerful you get. And this is one of many reasons why you can still do a significant amount of damage, or a respectable amount of damage, single target, and especially AoE, depending on how you're going to build your honor out, but we'll get there in a second. Valorous Defense speaks for itself. Once you go a little bit down health, 50%, you get an Aegis, and Aegis is also very important in this build, because not only will it save your life, it will also buff you, funny enough. Courageous Return. Now in this, if you have played Guild Wars 2, you will know in dungeons and in Worldview World, you will go down, and you will most likely be rallied. So being able to directly use your Virtue of Courage once again, which is your shield, which allows you to give yourself a shield every 40 seconds, or yourself directly and everybody near you, may be a lifesaver, or is just ends up being very nice, especially once we get into the virtues. Might of Protector, and now you start to see why Aegis is very nice. You get Might. Might means damage buff to your might and condition damage, so every time you block, you become stronger. There you go. Altruistic healing, and this is a very important part of my build. This allows me to heal about 10k in like 3 seconds if I like in Worldview World, and it just allows me to deal massive amounts of healing to myself by just being supportive, by helping my team out. A lot of things that you can do allow you to apply boons. Even just your F1 to F2 to F3, which will become a better boon giver because of the Inspired Virtue at Virtual right here, because they give might, regeneration and protection. But also if you use a staff as a secondary, which is my recommended item, your Empower, which pulses 4 times, which means 4 buffs, which means you can in Worldview World buff a massive amount of people 4 times. Suddenly, oh, I'm almost dead, suddenly you're back up at full health, just because of this one Grandmaster trait. The insane amount of healing that you can do with this, as well as in combinations with the symbols that you can put down with all your weapons, you will heal yourself almost always. There's no way you're not healing yourself. So you become very tanky, you have a lot of health, and you don't take a lot of damage because, well, toughness reduces the damage taken. you're also constantly healing yourself. You are pretty much unkillable in the right situations. So, once again, you become tougher, you become more powerful, and you're not gonna go down if you play your cards right. Especially with good gear. So make sure to watch out for that. You need toughness gear of your level to go into dungeons, otherwise you might find yourself in a sticky situation. Honor. Now, honor is a little bit complicated because this really shows what kind of person you are, because honor is really based around personal preference. It does increase your health, which is a good thing. It increases your healing, once again, with altruistic healing and such, and of course your resolve and the massive amounts of healing that you can do with your symbols because of this, the Rift of the Merciful right here, as well as the weapons that you're using. It's brilliant to have a healing buff. Also, it also allows you to dodge more. If you crit a lot, well, if you are having a lot of toughness, you will crit a lot, therefore you will have a lot of dodge, which means you can avoid a lot of damage, and you are already a tough bastard. There you go. It all works together flawlessly. It's amazing. And this is where it really becomes personal preference. Like, I have my build and honor based around symbols for a very good reason. Like, I'm playing always with 1 or 2 melee characters in dungeons, and I'm always the type of person that goes in and annoys people in World v World because of my utility spells, but we'll get there in a second. So I'm always really much in the front line because I can take it. I am the guardian that they deserve and the guardian that they need right then. So I go in, place my symbols down, may it be in World v World or dungeon bosses, and they are larger. So the buffs that they will give or the damage that they will do is covered in a larger field. So larger symbols, very nice. In addition to that, also when you start dodging quite a bit, you will heal nearby allies. Once again, critting, more dodge, more healing. There you go. Rift of the Persistent, your symbols last longer. So more damage, AoE, on a very large scale because you have increased symbol size. And in addition to that, if you have the last trait here, which all symbols heal allies, you will heal longer. So more healing, more damage, longer buffs, a longer combo field. It is amazing. This is why I really enjoy these specific 3, because they all work together so flawlessly. And also, if you have dodged quite a bit with elusive power at 25 here, you will do more damage. Now, the reason why I say this is very much personal preference is because I like my symbols. I like them quite a bit. I'm always have my symbols up to do amazing amounts of damage, even better damage in AoE, especially when you have the increased one. But I can understand that you might want to change them out a bit, because there's quite a nice amount of traits in honor. For example, I believe if you are running a shout build, and shouts are really good, especially in World v World. I think that World v World and shouts are a better combination than World v World and symbols. So if you are going to run shouts, 20% shouts regeneration, why not? Seems to be the right thing to do. Or, for example, let's see, every time you crit, you gain a might. Now this is actually a thing that I'm actually considering to take and switch out with most likely the size of my, with the size of the symbols. Because every time I crit, for 5 seconds I give everybody a might buff. And you know what giving a boon does to you? It will heal yourself. So every time I crit, I will not only make myself stronger and my allies, I will also heal myself. So this is something you might want to take as well, which I'm actually thinking about taking myself. But right now I'm still just running the symbol build, if you like. And there's another few things, like I believe there's a greatsword one. Also, nearby allies gain Virtue of Resolve, which is kind of nice, because then everybody suddenly has there's additional passive regeneration. But also, if you run a shout buff build, this might be very nice, especially when you're fighting necromancers, for example. But two-handed mastery is a very nice one as well. Like, if I know I'm going to be in a dungeon on my own as the only, no, not on my own, but as the only melee character, I am more inclined to use this one, because the reason why a nice sized symbol is very nice to have in the dungeon is because then multiple people that are melee can stand near the boss and still gain the benefits of the symbol. If that is not the case, then why would you not have more single target DPS? And then of course combine that with empowering might, and then just to top it off, a symbol, for example, they last longer or whatever. It can work out quite nicely, but like I said, this is a personal preference right now, and depending on the situation I would run a build like that. but because of the dungeons that I'm running, the people that I'm running with, etc., I think that the symbols right now work better for me, but this will most likely change in the future. So just play around with it, but symbols you can't go wrong with there. But if you prefer to do a little bit more damage, go for the Greatsword, the Empowering Might, and you're set. And then 10 points in Virtues. Like somebody would most likely argue, go 10 points in Radiance or 10 points in Zeal, and alright, you can do that. The thing is, the 5 points that you can get here, not worth it. The 5 points that you can here, not really worth it. And the traits that you can get here, or the adept traits that you can get in Radiance or Zeal, are really not worth it compared to what you can get for this build in 10 Virtues. Not only are you able to give more buffs out by pressing F1, F2, F3, which also heals you and helps your team. Teamwork, guys. It's very nice. Also, Aegis. 10% more damage while your Aegis is up. So, right there, a giant increase in damage. And you're tough as hell. So you can actually do a respectable amount of damage. And if you dodge right, if you use your utility spells right, you can even do more damage if you can keep this up. So very nice. Now speaking a little bit about the weapons that I have available. Now my main set is a greatsword and a staff. Now the greatsword is your main source of damage. Not only does it allow you to place down a very powerful symbol, which is very nice for AoE and buffing people and healing people because of my build, of course, right now. Also your third melee strike basically allows you to give yourself might, as you can see. Nice AoE power. You have a very nice pull move as well, an AoE pull move, which then is very nice comboed with Whirling Wrath. But if you are just doing single target fights and you apply the Binding Blade, you apply a damage dot to your enemy as well. If you don't use it again, it will stay there. So a lot of people don't even know that, but that's just some nice damage over time that you can do as a Guardian with your Greatsword. And Leap of Faith is just very nice. It blinds. It's a nice initiating move, and well, there you go. It also has a combo finisher, so if you have the right combo field below you, it can really help you out. So what I tend to do is, I just fight with my Greatsword a bit. I find that my cooldowns are running low. I switch to my staff, apply the swiftness buff. Symbol will heal, will do damage, and will give everybody swiftness. I will give everybody the empower buff, which is of course a nice amount of might stacks, as well as the giant heal that I do, as well as of course the giant healing that I will take if I have taken damage. I will most likely use 2 as well for a nice damage, at least the ability to do some decent damage, as well as an even better heal, just to help out my team. And then I switch back, jump back in with 4, pull people back in, place a symbol down, and go and continue that. And you will do respectable amount of damage, respectable amount of support, and you are just basically unkillable if you do it right, assuming you don't get one-shotted for whatever reason. So these are the weapons that I use, but you will always have to have a backup. For example, in World v World, if you're defending a wall, you don't have a range attack. Your staff won't hit you. So what you could do is have a shield with you, or a torch, or a focus. I prefer a shield because it just looks a bit better. But wear your shield, wear your scepter, and you can always just use your range attacks. Have it as backup with you. I don't use it as my main weapons, of course, clearly. But if I'm on the wall, I would like to be able to do some damage on the people down there. So place your AoE down, and there you go. And then once you get out of combat, you have defended your wall. You can always just switch back to your Greatsword with no problem. And you're good to go again, to go in like the Guardian you deserve to be. Also, there's other ways of doing it as well. Like, for example, your elite skills. I prefer to use Tomb of Wrath in World v World if I'm fighting on a wall. I use Tomb of Courage in dungeons because it is very nice with support and healing. So you want to check that out as well. And if you are just constantly going into fights and just trying to mess people off, then Renewed Focus is your best friend, because the tombs, they take a bit of a casting time and don't last as long, where Renewed Focus will not only make you invulnerable for 3 seconds, it also allows you to regen all your virtues. So you can spam them, then use this ability, and then spam them again if required. So you can do a lot of nice things at once. But then I think the most important part is, depending on the weapons that you want to use. Like, if you really want to become tanky, use a shield. Switch out the trait in honor that buffs your toughness and shield as well, and use a mace. Like, shield and mace, I believe, and two-handed mace is the combination that will give you the most protection, but it won't allow you to do a respectable amount of damage, which is something you have to consider, which is a sacrifice I have made, because I wanted to do somewhat decent damage. Once again, personal preference. But your utility spells for this build are very general. This is what I have that works both in PvP and PvE quite well. Like the retreat is something you will always need, because it gives you Aegis, once again with the Virtue trait. Aegis, if you have an Aegis up, 10% more damage. But it also allows you to give Aegis to people as well as the swiftness. So for traveling, it's very nice to have that swiftness up, because you can then, of course, then chain it with your symbol of swiftness, and questing it becomes suddenly a lot faster. But of course, it also allows you to buff up people that are with you, as well as giving them an Aegis, which could potentially be lifesavers. Wall of Reflection. Now this is a very nice troll and a very powerful utility spell, and it's my favorite as of yet. If I'm fighting in World 3 World, I usually just end up doing, I go in with Leap of Faith. I can take quite a bit of damage, especially because of my healing spell as well. So I go in, I place down Wall of Reflection, everybody's shooting at me, and I dodge roll back, and suddenly everybody starts killing themselves, because there's a Wall of Reflection in the way. So the tide of battle has been turned, or even on choke points when Zergs are colliding in choke points, using this is just amazing to piss people off, and potentially to kill even, or do massive amounts of damage if they're not paying attention, because people don't really pay attention in World 3 World. In dungeons, like if you're fighting a boss with projectiles, this is a lifesaver. Catacombs, explorable, first boss. In the middle, this thing is a bloody lifesaver. There's no exception. This thing is amazing. But what do you do if you're fighting a character that has no projectiles, or a boss that has no projectiles? Well, you switch it out for something you enjoy more. Like I said, a lot of shouts are really good in World 2 World, but they are also very good in dungeons. Or if you want to have more combo fields, use Hallowed Ground if you want to buff your people that are with you. Or use Purging Flames if you, well, want to be a little bit more on the offense. You can also use Judge Intervention, because it's an offensive blink towards your target, which might be very nice depending on who you're fighting. Or perhaps Merciful Intervention, which then comes back to helping your team out. And this might be a very good thing to do. If you're fighting a lot of conditions, Smite Condition. It all comes down to what you're fighting, and because the system is made to really easily switch them out, it doesn't really matter. But this is my base, basically. And I change them accordingly. I have them all unlocked anyway. Signet of Judgment. Now this is something you don't really want to touch because of the buff. 10% less damage. I'm tanky as hell already with all the toughness that I have, with all the health that I have, with all the healing that I do. And I take 10% less damage on top of that because of this. Now this is something that is just a brain dead thing. You don't really have to think about it, because the Signet itself is really not that amazing compared to the buffs that you can give to yourself and the debuffs that you or your team will do as well. But if you don't like the Signet, you can do more damage, as you can see right there, or just improve more healing, or I don't know, use your blinks, or use your fire combo fields, because if you're not going to use this one, you can have another useful one. But this is my base, basically. This is my baseline. This works for pretty much everything. And the main thing I tend to change out is the reflective Wall of Reflection if I'm fighting a boss that doesn't have projectiles. But in World 3 World, there's always going to be projectiles. Trust me, I've been there quite a while. So Wall of Reflection, amazing to troll with, to turn fights around, and just to piss people off. It's an amazing tool. And it's severely underused and severely underappreciated.
Eat my dust!
Apparently I have to eat dust now as well. So I think we pretty much have covered everything I have to say about this build specifically. So I can only say, make sure to check it out. You'll become very tough, do a respectable amount of damage, have amazing support in both healing and giving out buffs. So it all comes down to what you like. Try it out, you will not regret it. Just make sure that if you are going to use this build, and you are going into a dungeon and you're not level 80 yet, just make sure that you have toughness gear of your level, or at least of the dungeon's level. And I prefer to use Cleric, because as you can see, I do a lot of healing, and Cleric does have the power, toughness, healing power. But I believe if you go into, I think, Knight armor, it's a little bit more focused on damage. And I do prefer the superior rune of the Doliac as well, for a very obvious reason. More health, more toughness. I'm a goddamn tank. What do you want? Make sure to try it out. Let me know what you think, and I will catch you guys next time. Take care.